Welcome to Man in America, a voice of reason in a world gone mad. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. As we witness what's happening in the world around us, we're seeing a lot of things that are pretty scary. And I'd say that the number one thing that concerns me is the development of AI and the technology that could be used in conjunction with AI to control us, the technocratic system, and not the digital prison like that you might think of in terms of you looking at China, the social credit scores. I think it's all part of it. But the much deeper and much more frightening aspect of that is the nanotech that they are putting into our bodies through vaccines, through aerosolized sprays, through mosquitoes, and much more. But then if you break down this plan and where it leads to, you can't look at it without really diving into the battle of good versus evil and the fact that they're trying to use these AI systems and this technology to bypass our own free will, which is God-given. And if you look at it from that lens, it's frightening, but it also gives you a lot of hope. And so joining me today is my good friend Todd Callender, and we're going to be talking about some of the pathogens, some of the medical aspect of what's happening, but also the bigger picture of the development of AI and why both of us actually believe that this entire system they're building is going to fail. And it's not just some theories either. It's just we have some hard evidence that we're looking at and indicators that show that this technocratic AI one world system that's being built is destined to fail. So please enjoy this interview with Todd Callender. Mr. Todd Callender, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm looking forward to talking with you. It's been too long, so thank you for being here.
Yeah, too long indeed. It's really my honor, and I really mean that. I so enjoy your company, and the cool part is we get to let other people listen in. So thanks for having me.
And it's funny, it's a cool part because I feel like that if you and I were sitting around a campfire just talking, that if we recorded it, it wouldn't be much different than the conversations that we have here because neither of us are putting on a show. We're just talking about what's on our minds, where we think things are going, what's concerning us, where we find hope, and people get to sit in and listen to that, which is, it's great. It's actually, it's a pretty cool thing because some of our interviews have, I think, have gotten 500,000 plus views and downloads, and I think some even maybe into the millions perhaps. And it's just a really special opportunity to be able to have a conversation that for some reason other people around the world seem to be, they find it useful, a worthy part of their time to listen to us, which is an honor. It really is an honor to have this place. So.
Yeah. And I would add to that too, I believe in a connected consciousness. When you're spending time with your wife, you don't have to ask if she's upset. She's upset, but it's not just that. There's a shared thinking that happens, and you sometimes say things that just resonate with me. And when I hear you say it, I'm like, I was thinking that, but not in those words. And so I think that's also part of it. There's a community of people that are thinking the same thing broadly as we are. Maybe just haven't reduced it to writing or had a conversation about it. But I think that's the appeal of all this, is that you've got the intestinal fortitude to actually say what other people are thinking, Seth.
That's true. It's got me in trouble a lot, but it's also got me to where I am now. So we're going to hit on a couple of different topics, which I'm really looking forward to. We're going to look into kind of biotech and the poisoning of humanity through different vectors, which is an ongoing story. But then I also want to spend some time digging into AI and technocracy, and not digging into here's how they're going to enslave us, here's the system, here's the prison they're building. But I think also, perhaps more importantly, focusing on why we both believe that system will fail, which I think is a really important point. But first, let's kind of hit on just the biological and health aspects. I know that you've recently recovered from what I would consider, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a biological attack on you. Yeah. And so I'll let you start there, and we can kind of just see where that takes us.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And I'm happy to share because I think it's an ever-present threat. I ended up getting what was diagnosed as dengue fever. It's a viral hemorrhagic fever, not too unlike Marburg, Ebola, Zika, all of those things, which were man-made, by the way. We have their formulas. But yeah, I'm the only guy in the entire country that got this, but it manifested itself with a lot of different properties that led some of the advising doctors to conclude, this was obviously pathogenic, designed that way, but some of those ingredients, what they call causative agents, they manifest in very particular ways. So in this particular case, there are symptomology relating to Venezuelan equine encephalitis, leprosy, for God's sake, and then the regular dengue fever stuff. They call it the bone crushing disease, and it's horrible. My point being this, that since the rollout of the mRNA, the synthetic DNA, synthetic RNA shots, people, thanks to you in no small part, are going, I don't want your shots. I'm not putting anything foreign in my body. So as you see the syringe and needles failing, people are repulsed by that. Now, what has happened, and we've tracked it all back, and I'm sharing evidence with you, that in place of a needle and a syringe, what they did is they introduced the snout of a mosquito. So believe it or not, we actually found out that Bill Gates and his crew have been creating genetically modified mosquitoes for some years and releasing them all over the place. One of the things that I sent you showed that in the area where he has a factory in Brazil, this is supposed to stop dengue fever. Instead, it created a 400% increase in dengue fever. And I can tell you from this disease, had I not talked to some alt medicine docs, one in the military in particular, I wouldn't be talking to you now because this was absolutely deadly and people are dying of it. But what I want people to understand is that this is a different syringe, it's a different needle, and this one's flying around, and it's not confined to just mosquitoes. It's biting insects, biting rats. The soldiers, the Russian soldiers in Donbass are reporting the same symptomology as I had. There's no mosquitoes around, but they have rat fever. My point is that, again, the attacks are not yet over, Seth. The mandate is to either eradicate or transform humanity into something else. Either way, we're being made extinct, either by death or by transformation. And here we go. We look at the causative agents in this are the exact same ones that you find in the shots. And these causative agents, as strange as that sounds, when they've done their job in your body, they become general AI agents. Effectively, they morph into becoming tools of artificial intelligence, which goes back to some of the other conversations we had that, our bodies are being adapted and adjusted by virtue of these ingredients, cesium-137 being one of them, into becoming tools, cloud computing machines, batteries, power sources. And now it's been integrated to the point where, the Google Mesh Network has hooked people into it. Hospitals now monitor you remotely through an iPad. There's no wires attached. They know what's going on in your body. All of this is the exact same thing. It's the same attack on humanity. And this is just a new vector. And I happen to be so disfortunate as to suffer it.
And so with your symptoms, and you don't have to go into details of it, but because I remember actually early on, when maybe you're a week or so into this, we had a meeting and we had to end early because you just weren't feeling well. So,
yeah,
you hear dengue fever and it's easiest to think, oh, it's just like a bad fever, right? Maybe you got fever.
No,
but
yeah.
what was it that you were experiencing, and what was the duration of this?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, it's horrible. And I can tell you, for the first month, I could barely move. I lost feeling in my body from my waist down until midnight every night. And then with a flick of a switch, the bone crushing part of it came to fruition. And you just sit there and have to take the pain till 6 or 6:30 in the morning. And then the bone crushing part turned off. And according to Dr. Rima Lebo, she said, yeah, that's EMF. It's obviously responding to an EMF signal. And I believe that she's right, because it was midnight on the dot every night. You're in pain all night long. You can't sleep. And so anyway, that was the symptomology. Aside from, viral hemorrhagic fevers means you bleed out of your orifices. And the worst part about it is that the conventional treatment is they give you Panadol for pain. That's it. You don't get anything else. And thank God I didn't listen to the regular docs. And I hit this with everything we had: chlorine dioxide, ivermectin, eventually mebendazole saved the day. And I found that to be especially interesting. One of our military docs was able to source it for me, had to come from a compounding pharmacy. Why? Pfizer bought the patent apparently years ago. You can't find mebendazole, and that within an hour or two changed my life and started getting rid of this disease. So the point being that this looks like it's another setup, right? They gave you the disease. The only cure, undoubtedly, is their dengue fever vaccine, which I know exists.
Of course.
Marburg vaccine, right? All of these treatments exist when there is an existing cure, and I can attest to that personally. But that cure is unavailable. No different than they took ivermectin off the shelves. Hydroxychloroquine was taken off the shelves. So it looks to me like this is the next setup, and you find that there's this exploding rate of chikungunya and Zika and all these other viral hemorrhagic fevers. Ethiopia now has a Marburg outbreak, right? So the attacks aren't over. So that's the bad news. The good news is that there are things that you can do, and you don't have to listen. Go take your mebendazole. I'm sorry, go take your Panadol and die. You can now actually, figure out how to solve this problem. Thank God.
Yeah, exactly. And so here's the hard truth. Every 6 years, your dollar loses half its buying power. That means a $100,000 savings account today could feel like $50,000 by 2031. And you see it every time you fill up your tank, buy groceries, or pay the bills. Prices are up. Your dollar's down. But there's a simple way to protect the value of your savings with something real, something proven: gold. An asset that holds its value over time. And that's why I trust Noble Gold Investments. They make it simple to protect your savings with physical gold or silver. No high-pressure sales, no call centers, just honest guidance, one-on-one support, and transparent pricing. And right now, when you open a qualified account, Noble Gold will send you a free 10-ounce silver American flag bar as a thank you. So, head over to goldwithseth.com or call 626-654-1906 today to learn more. Again, that's goldwithseth.com or 626-654-1906. Don't just protect your wealth, preserve its power. Do you think, in terms of how this, you mentioned the mosquitoes, right? And kind of, instead of having a syringe, you just got a little bug thing, right? And I know that we talked about the Brazil study, which I saw it before actually. They did a big release. Is it Oxitec, right? Is that the? I think I might have the link for it.
The amazing part, let me just add to this: these mosquitoes are emergency use authorized, no different than the COVID shots. Why would you need to get a mosquito licensed? Right? So that tells you that this is genetically modified, is loaded with pathogens, because they actually had to get it used as a medical device, EUA. Otherwise, mosquitoes are the invention of God. You can't patent those. You don't license those. So here we are. This is a medical device, as they call it.
And what about? I want to pull up I think it's a UN program, right?
World Mosquito Program.
So, well, first off, I'll highlight this is one of the creepiest images I think I've seen in a while. Like, this is, what a strange image. And of course, we know that they're always putting in the symbolism, and they're layering these things in. But you look at this, the World Mosquito Program, which I'd like to have you help kind of define what this is and what who's behind it, what it's doing. But even looking at the main image on their website of this girl wearing a creepy looking mosquito mask, I think that's what it is, right? She's got a mosquito mask, and she's kind of, zoom out there, and she's running from this strange, it reminds me of from the Pooh movie that came out in the 70s, of the heffalumps and the woozles. There's this kind of like weird trippy scene in it, but it's just creepy. But so what is this? So what is the World Mosquito Program?
Yeah, it's another fraud. So no different than we had the COVID fraud. They took flu and turned it into something different. The same thing here. So the story goes that there's this horrible thing called dengue fever, and it's mosquito borne, and all of that is true. However, Bill Gates and his team, this is WHO, Gates, the usual suspects, said we're going to genetically modify mosquitoes, male mosquitoes, such that when they mate with the females, they'll make the females incapable of reproducing. So that's the idea, is that somehow that we're going to get rid of dengue by killing off all the female mosquitoes. Female mosquitoes, the ones that bite and pass disease. So we hear. However, everywhere that they have built one of these factories and are releasing billions a day of these mosquitoes, the dengue fever rate goes up by 400% or more. So it's obviously not eradicating mosquitoes. It's obviously not eradicating dengue fever. It's just another pretext. If you can imagine, Seth, they have an air wing. They have an air force, the World Mosquito Program. You can look it up for yourself. We noticed this because I was looking on ForeFlight. I'm a pilot, and I was looking at this aircraft flying around the Florida Keys. And you look at the owner, you can click on it. So, holy cow, that's the World Mosquito Program. And then there were two more of them on other parts of the Keys, and they were dropping their mosquitoes all over the Florida Keys. But you can look it up on, Flight Tracker, things of that nature. They have their own freaking Air Force deploying genetically modified mosquito drones that are actually licensed by the FDA, if you can imagine this. No different than the EUA shots they passed around to the world in the first instance. It's another means of doing the exact same job using a synbio needle and syringe. That's the only difference.
It's just by this point, it's like there's nothing that will surprise you.
Nothing.
Right? It's like
nothing.
And I think a lot of what we've talked about seemed maybe 2 or 3 years ago, these were more fringe ideas, but now you look at them and they're not fringe anymore. Like, people are seeing them and realizing them. And I mean, even Tucker Carlson has Dane Wigington on his show talking about chemtrails. And like, I remember I had Dane Wigington on probably 4 years ago, and at that point, he was someone that had very little public appearances aside from podcasts like my own. But one thing that you mentioned, though, is that you mentioned the leave behind technology and how it ties into AI. And this is something that I think really needs more attention brought to it, because if you look at the vaccines, which I think the vaccines were a payload of a lot of different things, but I definitely think that it was a technology delivery platform. And if you look at then whether it's HARP or the 5G network and all the patents, many of which that we have looked at, and the W-band, the wireless body of network, or is that what it is?
Wireless body area network.
Network, right? But it kind of explain a little more what you're referring to with this kind of leave behind technology that was there.
Well, sure. So we being our research team, as you know, we've got a full-time team that does this in support of public interest litigation, because we actually file lawsuits to try and stop this stuff. The first and landmark case was against the DoD that really led us down this trail. That was before the shots came out. We had discovered that the military had done their own studies using these vaccines. And the result of that clinical trial, take this into account, it'll blow your mind, 44,000 service members and their families, it's important to note, and their families, were participants in this clinical trial. 178 people out of 44,000 finished it. There were 30,000 VAERS reports filed that were buried by the Defense Health Agency. This is in advance of the order for everybody to take the shots. And by the way, in their own clinical studies, there were 1,291 new diseases caused by the shots. 1,291 new diseases the participants went home with. 1,200 deaths were buried, 82% spontaneous abortion rate. The deaths included, if you can imagine, newborns getting COVID shots. This was a year before the order was issued. What I'm trying to say to you is that they knew the side effects. They knew all of this a year before they said, hey, you have to take this stuff. So it started me down this trail, because in that report, they made reference to something called an EPCR device. It's an in-touch e-diary EPCR device. And what they were doing was using low energy Bluetooth, what we now call wearables, right? Bobby Kennedy was up there talking, everybody needs a wearable, your Fitbit, right, your phone. They were using a program in these wearables to transmit real-time changes in people's bodies, genetic and otherwise, to somebody in Israel who laundered the data, sent the data back to the DoD, the FDA, and Pfizer, and said, safe and effective. right? They buried all those results. The point being, in there, we also found cesium-137, this radioactive material they make nuclear weapons with. Why? Because as you read through literature, what you come to find is that it's a genetic modification of your body, not just to change you into a new species so they can own you, but it's for the purpose of harnessing you and integrating your body into the AI matrix, right? So they bring AI into the whole of government. Those computers are now networked into people. How do I know that? Again, I've got a whistleblower. She is a network engineer. Her job is to access people's wireless body area networks and integrate them into the hospital computers. She's been doing this for years now. The technology exists, it's wireless. And what I'm saying to you is the components in these shots, whether delivered by mosquito or delivered by syringe, is immaterial. It's the exact same chemical compounds, and most importantly, something called causative agents that change your body around. They mutate it into a tool to be used for data storage, cloud computing, and power supply. Right? And then we demonstrated to you some time ago, there was actually a company that was harnessing people's biorhythms. They had already used 1.4 trillion heartbeats to mine cryptocurrency. Well, where did I see that before? Oh, yeah, the Bill Gates patent, WIPO 2020060606. Right? That patent was awarded in 2020. Before all of this unfolded, the point I'm trying to make here is the leave behind technology was already installed in, and now for those that they missed, there are mosquito drones or rat drones or whatever you want to call them that are being delivered, that are programmed to deliver these things. And when you start to understand the integration, Professor Giordano from Georgetown University is talking about 10 years ago, when the nanobots are inside the brain, because they pass the blood-brain barrier, biodistribution as a whole of body, they have the ability to change the way people think, even on an ad hoc individual basis. You think the thoughts are your own, but they're not. So how would you distinguish where people have relationships with AI? Ladies have boyfriends. They name their AI boyfriend. How do you distinguish that any different from a synbio person? Right? It's just taking a host body. And the scary part is that this is here. This is now. This is not some future. This is not speculation. Right? We have the evidence. You have a lot of it. We've given it over your time. But now we have to contend with this. And I don't see anybody, Seth, doing anything much about it, in government or otherwise.
Well, there's also, I saw recently a woman in Japan that married her AI avatar. She created this AI man, and she actually had a wedding, and she married him, which is, I mean, not only was it weird, but it's frightening actually, because it's again, it's the merger of man and machine. But actually, there's something I wanted to. I was just kind of looking through, and I found this. I had saved this because I wanted to talk to you about it. I'm not sure if you probably saw this, but this is from 7Cs over on Twitter. He's got a lot of good research. He says MIT has developed bioelectronic devices that after IV injection are trafficked through the circulatory system and implant autonomously in brain regions of inflammation. He says they also demonstrate that they enable wirelessly controlled focal stimulation of deep brain regions such as ventrolateral thalamic nucleus in the rodent brain, providing a non-surgical brain implant for focal neuromodulation, right? Neuromodulation is control of the brain, right? Or control of the nervous system.
Yeah.
That takes advantage of immune cells' natural trafficking of sites to inflammation. They have given electronics that circulate through the vasculature the name circulatronics. And so, I mean, this is so as much as people say, oh, this is some weird conspiracy. It's like, no. Like this
it's a conspiracy. It's just not a theory.
Well, exactly. There you go. Right. So basically, so it says the realization of the circulatronics brain simulators requires the development of wireless free-floating electronic devices that are miniaturized to fit inside of the vasculature, the circulation of these devices without being eliminated from the bloodstream, capabilities in the recognition of and self-implementation in desired brain regions. So there's some, it's kind of cyborgs, right? So then here's literally, let's see, I pull up
here. That's what that is, synthetic biology.
So here's the actual MIT News press release about this. Is from about a year ago. wearable devices for cells. It says by snugly wrapping around neurons, these devices could help scientists probe subcellular regions of the brain and might even help restore some brain function. So, this is exactly what you're talking about. It says these battery-free subcellular devices made of a soft polymer are designed to gently wrap around different parts of neurons, such as axons and dendrites, without damaging the cells upon wireless activation with light. By snugly wrapping neuronal processes, they could be used to measure or modulate a neuron's electrical or metabolic activity at a subcellular level. So it's like this, and again, this is just what they're telling us. So it's like, okay, well, if MIT is publishing this publicly, what's going on behind the scenes? Because we know that these schools, MIT, a lot of the large schools, they're just a way of the government and the military-industrial complex to do their research and develop weapons and weapons technology in a way that can't be traced back to them, through grants. And it's a way that they've hidden themselves from actually developing these things that you would never want the DoD developing, but they do it through research and everything through these schools that are funded by Epstein and Wexner and all these mysterious people that here it is, right?
Here it is. Yeah, it is. And what that also makes reference to is something called optogenetics. And Dr. Lee Merritt, a good friend of mine, she is the leader in understanding this. But it's light frequencies. And one of the other things we came to understand in studying the effect of cesium-137 on a body, and cesium-137, by the way, was a listed ingredient in the shots. Not only that, but we found it in the tests that we did of people that got the shots. But one of the things it does is it takes frequencies in the 5G range and it amplifies them into the 6G range. So that's taking gigahertz and transferring them into terahertz. Terahertz is the light range. So when you talk about these things now interacting with light, we actually found there's a glycoprotein called mCherry, MCHERRY, and it has the ability to turn your heart on and off when it's introduced to a certain frequency range of light. So of course it is, but this is called optogenetics, and that's all part of the plan to integrate our bodies to be usable as machines. And our government doesn't hide from this anymore. They actually call it what it is. There's a division of HHS called SynBio, stands for synthetic biology. And this is a whole of government approach. It's been fully funded. When you look through the documents where they integrate all of this into the government, it's 20 different agencies involved. It's a whole of government approach. And so now you understand that this isn't just some one-off thing. This wasn't just some mistake. This has been planned for a very long time, and it is global in every respect. The question I have for you, Seth, is, what are we going to do about it? And I have some ideas, but it's here. This is not speculation. And on that note, I want people to understand something here. A conspiracy is a legal term. It's a criminal law term. It's a crime. It's a felony under federal law. It is an agreement between two or more people to plan a crime in one step in furtherance. That's the definition. So when people run around saying it's a conspiracy, probably it is. A conspiracy theory is something called probable cause. That's what cops use to arrest people. So it's easy to attach this label and say, oh, well, we're not going to listen to that anymore because it was labeled this. Well, think for yourselves a little bit. Where did that label come from, how, and why? It's because people are planning a criminal enterprise and taking one step in furtherance, thus a conspiracy. It's an appropriate name. I just want people to understand its real use.
And so I think that it's really important when discussing all these different aspects of what's happening, and it seems frightening, which it is, but I think it's really important to take that kind of 10 or 100,000 foot view of, okay, what is the end game of this? And I'll throw out my kind of theory, but I want to hear your thoughts as well. Since the dawn of time, I think there's always been good and evil on this earth, right? We're aware of that. The serpent in the garden, it's just, since the beginning of man, there's been evil forces that want to control. Now, evil controls through slavery, through manipulation, through fear and mind control, and all these things. That's how evil controls. You look at nations that have been swallowed up by communism, right? It's the same thing. Through propaganda, information control, brainwashing. And this has really been it's kind of been the end goal. If you look and you research deep enough, and not even that deep actually, to arrive at these understandings, that there has been a long kind of played out conspiracy of powerful, evil people, which I
Yes.
think many are not even probably human. They're probably demons and incarnate and who knows what else,
Yeah.
that have wanted to enslave mankind as a whole, right? To create some sort of centralized, new world order, one world government, which, obviously we're familiar with these terms. But I think that they realized that they would only be able to do that through technology. And now I think it's easy for people to look at the technocratic grid, like look at China, the social credit system, and they have these
Yes.
are these are kind of controls, of course, but those are almost in essence no different than, say, pinning up an animal in a cage, right? And watching them, and maybe you have like a shock buzzer, okay, hitting the button, okay, you can't do that, you can't do that, but you're still in a cage. But I think that the
Yeah.
ultimate end goal of this is actually to not even need that, because I think that if they can have that level of control inside of our own bodies, where they can control our thoughts, our brain waves, control our functions, they can pacify us, that's really the end goal, as far as I understand with this, is that it's been a systematic plan to get technology into our bodies, build the infrastructure around us through 5G, through HARP, through Starlink, satellite, et cetera. So build the control network around us and get that technology into our bodies, which I think was one of the main objectives of the COVID, the vaccine, quote unquote, vaccine program, was to get that technology payload inside of people that they can then use to eventually control us. Because if in the future, you don't need a prison, you don't need walls.
No.
If you can literally, through some sort of digital device, control everyone, that's great. But I also think that this goes hand in hand with the development of AI, and the understanding that it'd be very difficult for them to build some sort of centralized computer that would require humans to monitor it, to control everybody. It'd be very difficult for them to achieve that. So I think that the development of an AI system that could act as the controller, and this is what's happening in China. China's, they're using their
Yes.
AI system to run their social credit score and everything. It's also, you look what Palantir is doing, all these, it's very AI
Yep.
driven. I do think that that's really the end goal, is to have some sort of AI overlord that has the access to everything, our thoughts, our emotions, whether it's through wearables or whether it's through internal kind of wearables, right? Things that are attached at a cellular level. And I do think that that's actually where this all leads to. Now, I'm not saying that's where we're going, but I think that's the end goal for them, is to have it so we all have this technology in our bodies. They have the infrastructure to control it. They have the AI brain, the data centers needed to do this. And overnight, they've got the entire human population as slaves. So,
Yes.
it seems kind of wild, but do you think that
No.
that's a fair assessment of where they want this to go?
No, I think it's a fair assessment of where we are. Where I think want to go is a step further. And this was, again, part of the research when we discovered there's a division of SynBio in HHS. Their mission is to genetically modify every plant and animal species on the planet. And when you come to understand the integration of cesium into us, it's not just us, it's any living tissue. And the cesium has that same effect. It effectively turns that living tissue into a resource that amplifies, it transmits, it receives, and acts as a transducer. In other words, it can modulate signals, frequencies for that matter. So when you come to understand and you look into their integration and use of biorhythms, that means all biorhythms, all of life, and the ability for them to do that now, so much so that there are already standards written by the IEEE. You got to have a lot of data for standards. They're actually changing the world from God's creation into their creation. Right? How could Satan ever escape this domain? It's not his. Well, he's changing it into his. They're stealing life itself, Seth. How do we define life? How do we define our existence? We were given the opportunity to be in this domain by God, and they're stealing that, such that every living thing is now theirs. And that's actually what the law says. It goes back to this case we actually cited in our case to the Supreme Court. It's molecular pathology versus myriad genetics, 2013 U.S. Supreme Court held use of mRNA to modify a species, changes the species, number one, from God's creation to theirs. They own it. right? But it makes it into the intellectual property, personal property for that matter. So that's my view is, and I think this is in furtherance of an even a higher goal. I look at this from a planetary point of view. I don't know, like you said, Seth, I don't know who these owners are in terms of, are they human? I can't bring myself to believe that. Are they aliens or a different species? And I think the answer is yes. I think that whoever these overlords are, they've been here for thousands of years. They've already enslaved us the entire time in just different ways. And none of that's changed other than now their technological ability to actually pull it off. That's the concern.
It is, but then it's also, to me, it's also where the opportunity lies, because when you start to see how dependent they are on this technology,
Yes,
to achieve that plan, that becomes the Achilles heel, is that technology. And this is what I think is interesting, and I know that you follow this a lot because you're following the markets a lot closer than I do, and you're kind of tuned into a lot of things, which is one of the many reasons why I enjoy these conversations, is that they're trying to build this AI and this infrastructure, but I don't think that they're going to be able to. And there's a lot of indicators that show that. I mean, one thing I saw recently that was I wish I would have saved it. I think I screenshot it on my phone. Is that I think it was something like only 5% of the companies that have invested on using AI for their businesses. I think it's like only 5% actually saw a return on that investment. So as much as they're talking about, oh, AI is going to replace our jobs. Okay, yes, to a certain degree, we're going to see that. But maybe I can find it. Once you're talking, I can look off screen and find it real quick. But I think it was literally only 5% of the companies that have actually invested heavily in AI are actually seeing a return. So there's some kind of disconnect happening there. Like, and that's the thing is, like, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, if you look at this and you look at how technology becomes the critical tool to enslave humanity and to remove the free will from mankind. Because if you've got chips, at nanotech that's actually making your decisions for you, like, in my opinion, that goes against the law that God set forth in this delusion of a world, is that we have our free will. And so if Satan and his minions are trying to build a system using AI and technology to bypass that free will, they're going against the will of God. And ultimately, God kicks Satan out. It wasn't the other way around. We have to remember who's actually in control here. Ladies and gentlemen, our world is being poisoned. Every day we're exposed to more chemicals sprayed into our skies, leaching into our food, and polluting our air and water. From pesticides and heavy metals to hormone disruptors and synthetic additives, these toxins are bombarding our bodies and silently destroying our health. But there's something you can do to fight back, and it starts in your gut. Kimchi 1 from Bright Core Nutrition contains over 900 strains of beneficial probiotics that will help flush toxins, restore gut balance, and support your immune system. Because when your gut is strong, your body can resist. You'll feel the difference. Better digestion, more energy, clearer thinking, stronger immunity, and even improvements in your skin, hair, and metabolism. And this isn't just hype. Studies show that fermented foods like kimchi can reduce the risk of obesity, improve blood sugar, and support whole body wellness. Kimchi 1 is all natural, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, and 100% made in the USA by a company that actually cares about your health. And today, you can get an exclusive offer just for my viewers, 25% off with your code MANINAmerica by clicking the link below. Or call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. So give them a call now at 888-575-6488, and their educated staff will make sure that Kimchi 1 is right for you. Again, that's 888-575-6488. All the links and information are in the description below. And I think that Satan has been allowed to kind of reign free here because I think that we have to be tested. We have to show, are we going to have faith and choose the path of virtue and morality, or are we going to just kind of descend into being heathens and indulge in all the pleasures of the world that get presented to us? And I think, though, that by them trying to do that, it's like they're breaking something very fundamental about the laws that God has set forth in this world. And that I really believe that there's some sort of it's like that God has a glass ceiling on the development of technology, that like AI will not be able to achieve what they think it can, because you have to remember, these people, I'm not gonna say they don't believe in God, but like they think they believe in God, but it's a lot of them, they believe that like they're better than God. It's like to them, it's like it's a false entity, it's a false God, right? It's the inversion, right? That someone who worships Lucifer or Satan, they believe that Christ is actually the Satan. He's the evil one trying to deceive people. And so if these people, if they believe that, then they're not going to anticipate that God has the ability to limit their technology that they'd want to use. Like their arrogance, their hubris makes them think they can still achieve this. And so that's why I think, though, that and we're seeing it, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, and especially as you're seeing what's happening with the market, is we're seeing that they're building these huge data centers, but they can't actually power them. They don't have the energy to. They're propping up the stock market with the Magnificent Seven, these tech companies, but it's a bubble, and we're seeing that. So it's like everything that they're doing, it seems like they want us to believe that it's this monolithic, massive, global technocratic system that's being built, but I think the whole thing is going to fail. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, yes, the answer is I think that's right, but it's, and I love to think that it's God's hand, because I think that's what's been guiding us for the last 5 years at least, that enough of humanity has woken up to stymie this. We've so screwed up their plan in terms of people not wanting to take the shots, people opting out of their 5G phones, the 21 million Chinese did. All of these little things we do that are free will. I'm not going to take a shot. I'm not going to use 5G. I'm not going to use AI. That's a choice I make. I refuse to use it. Guess what that does? It's not just an expression of free will, but they need us to power their machine, their economic machine. It's the velocity of money. So by way of example, you look at the Bud Light fiasco with the transvestite spokesperson. What happened to Bud Light? Right? Everybody said, well, we're not going to drink that anymore. And all of a sudden the company's dying. It crashes. You look at my son's generation in particular. About half of those kids didn't go away to college because they said, what am I going to do? It's going to be replaced by AI and robots. Well, what happens to the university system that everybody depends on for jobs eventually crashing down? And his generation hate AI. They won't use it either. I won't use it. They won't use it. It's a binary option. And I equate it in some respects to like the GPS in your car. You go to a foreign city, you type in the address, you get to the location. You don't know how you got there. You let a machine do your thinking. So I think AI is the same. Are you going to allow a machine to do your thinking, especially when you know it's been trained to lie and it's wrong a lot? And maybe that's the reality they're confronting. But I think it's a function of us not going with the program. And two, they can't change their playbook. I think that President Trump's first term, albeit didn't look like it was that useful to us that really wanted to see changes, it created such a delay in the master plan. It doesn't appear as the owner class is able to actually change their plan or implementation of it. So the technology isn't where it should be because it just didn't get done, didn't get funded, whatever the case is. But it goes back to what you're saying, and that is God's greatest gift to mankind is free will. And we can exercise that all day, every day, and we are. And look at the effect.
Exactly. And even, I've got friends I've talked to, and they're telling me like, there's no way I'm getting a robot, right? Elon's Musk of billions of Optimus robots.
Yeah,
Like, there's no way I'm getting a robot in my home. I mean, like no way. I have. It's funny because I have this. Like I was at the hospital, quite a bit recently with my father was ill, and they had these like kind of these like robots kind of on the wheels kind of going around, and they were so stupid. It was actually funny to watch, but also I had this urge to like become violent towards the robot. It was almost like say a human living in the jungle, or say you look at a monkey, it has this innate urge to attack a snake with a stick, right? It's like because it knows that thing will try to hurt it, and that was my feeling towards it. It was like this thing is just like I wanted to like punch it or break it or something. But I saw this robot. It's funny because it was this advanced cancer hospital, and I saw it was like standing outside of the elevator, and someone would walk up and it'd say, can you please press the elevator and take me to this floor? And someone would press it and the door would open, and it would just kind of spin around like this, and it wouldn't do anything. And then the elevator would close. And it was just like, what a stupid machine. But actually, so Todd, I found that study I was telling you about. So this is from August 21st of this year. It was an MIT study on AI profits. So this the headline. This is on Axios. MIT study on AI profits rattles tech investors. So what it says here, it says Wall Street's biggest fear was validated by a recent MIT study indicating that 95% of organizations studied get zero return on their AI investment. So to me, this is it. Like, this is God here that we're seeing playing out in front of us. This is God's will. This is why it matters. Investors have put up with record AI spend from tech companies because they expect record returns eventually. This study calls those returns into questions, which could be an existential risk for a market that's overly tied to the AI narrative. So MIT researchers studied 3 public AI initiatives to try and suss out the no hype reality of AI's impact on business. So what they found, 95% of organizations found zero return despite enterprise investment of 30 to 40 billion into Gen AI. It says even firms that are now using AI are not seeing widespread distribution. So between the lines, companies that bought AI tools were far more successful than those that built internal pilots. But what they're saying is that my fear is at some point people will wake up and say, all right, AI is great, but maybe all this money is not actually being spent that wisely. So this is really, really significant, right? Because obviously, we know a lot of these things are driven by money. They're driven by the markets. And as much as we know that they've got black budgets and the trillions and all that kind of stuff, they still need to have, if NVIDIA comes out, say 3 weeks from now with the earnings report, and they say, actually, we've found that companies have stopped, buying our products because the AI is not working and they've missed their mark, you're going to see their stock start to crater. And what happens, it's not if, but when the tech AI bubble pops, I think that you're going to see all the wind swept out of the sails because they need that public sentiment. They need the public investment, the public excitement to get this thing over the finish line. But what's happening here is that we're already seeing these indicators that it's not working like they want it to. And this is like some of those encouraging news that I've found in a while.
Fabulous news. And I would add to this, as you're talking about that, it also reminds me in Texas, they built these big data centers. They were given preferential treatment for taxation. And then on top of that preferential treatment, not just taxation, they're given water and electricity rights over humans. So you got water shortages and blackouts for humans, but not for the AI data centers nearby. And so every war is fought over resources. What is it AI needs? It needs electricity and water. What do humans need? Electricity, water, and food. In other words, there's going to be a freaking war, unless this gets settled. But to find the somehow or other under Texas law, they're given this carte blanche for AI and data centers to the exclusion of humans should help us understand where it is we rank in the thinking of our government officials. And now that gives us the opportunity to say, hell no, we're not doing that. That's my water, that's my food, my electricity. But it puts that paradigm to the forefront when you're going without for some damn machine that doesn't work.
Exactly. Actually, I'm going to pull up real quickly here. I covered this recently where Elon Musk was talking. I'm not sure if you saw this. It was at his Tesla shareholder meeting. And let's see if I can find the clip of it. And someone had asked him, was it AI in charge? Let me see if I can pull this up quickly here. Right here. So look at this. This is interesting because, again, it's going to kind of read the room here. I'm not sure. Did you see this clip at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is worth kind of pointing out. So for one, if you watched many clips of this Tesla shareholder meeting, it was so much excitement. It was look how great the Optimus is going to be, and look what we're doing with the cyber taxi and the cyber truck. And so people were it was like, like the Super Bowl, party, right? People were so excited. But then there's a Q&A section, and so it says Musk is asked how we can get powerful people like himself to relinquish their power in a supposed post-scarcity world. So if you listen to his answer, where he admits that in his view, AI is going to be in charge, you can hear the silence in the room, and it tells you that people know. Like, people, they weren't cheering this. As much as
Yeah.
they're cheering the new robots and look, wow, the Cybertruck can go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds and haul a Porsche. Okay, that's great. But when he says this, you can tell people know what's going on. So I'll play this clip, and
Play it.
you can hear the contact, you can hear what's going on here. So 51 seconds. Let's listen to this. Let me make sure it's not too loud here.
Even today, you've mentioned, though, that in a post-scarcity world, the role of money could diminish or become obsolete. Mm-hmm. Given that much of today's power, including yours, is tied to wealth, do you think achieving this abundance would require powerful people to relinquish their power? And how might we address resistance from those who hold power to make this vision a reality?
Well, I mean, I think actually long-term, the AI is going to be in charge, to be totally frank, not humans. If artificial intelligence vastly exceeds the sum of human intelligence, it is difficult to imagine that any humans will actually be in charge. So we just need to make sure the AI is friendly. Yep.
Oh, now he's thinking about that.
But you can see that.
Now we better make sure that AI is friendly. Really?
Exactly. And that's the thing is, like, look, as much as, like, maybe now, but a little bit less, but I mean, Elon Musk was the hero of MAGA, him up there with Trump and his dark MAGA hat. And, a lot of people, a lot of strong Christians look past the fact that his profile picture for a long time was him dressed in a Satan, Luciferian looking armor, right?
Yep.
With, I think it was with Baphomet on his armor. Yes. And everyone making excuses for it and saying, "Oh no, look what he's doing," and Doge and all this kind of stuff. But this is the truth, right? Like this should be, in many ways, one of the most feared men in the world. And worrying, okay, what happens when this spirals out of control?
What do you mean when? So you look at Palantir is being fully integrated into HHS's computers. What is that? Well, it's being used by the Israelis now in Gaza as an autonomous, let's say that word again, autonomous, targeting and eradication device. That's what it does. So what do we see in the early days of the shots? Oh, well, let's just give the shots to the old folks. Melinda Gates says, oh, we have to give them to the blacks and the indigenous, quote unquote. Right? Who did they get rid of? Is the unfunded liabilities, right? People think there's a trust fund, Social Security. There's no trust fund. It's a system of transfers. They take from working people and they give it to non-working people. What they did was eliminate their unfunded liabilities. Look at this now in light of what it is we're talking about, AI and robots. What does that do to the average working people? It makes them redundant. It makes them unfunded liabilities. How are they going to meet these people's obligations to feed themselves? Universal basic income? Who's going to pay for that? Right? If you're not productive, how does that work? And the answer, it doesn't. So effectively, there's supposed to be the replacements to us vis-a-vis SynBio, because we're efficient as a means of production of electricity and computing. Great. The only problem is we don't have any role in it. That's a new species. It's a non-thinking. It's a computer species. And I think that was a really sentinel moment that you played there. When the one guy coughs, the room was so quiet. The guy coughs. It's just like, did you just say that? Because the gravity of the situation just landed on everybody. We're being made redundant, and they just figured that out.
But I think that people are rejecting it. I mean, a lot of people are using it.
So.
But you go back to what happened in 1776. What was it? 3% of the population that stood up. Yeah. That's all it took. And that's what as we're kind of rounding out here. I think that it's as we usually do. What are the solutions? Where's the hope? And I think that I'll kind of put a few small kind of quick points out there that I really want to hear your thoughts. But I think it's exercising our free will, right?
Yes.
Not getting smart devices in our homes, not getting a robot, not participating, living, trying our best to kind of build a life that's outside of that control grid. But I also think that it's really important that when we in this conversation, the discussion of good versus evil and understanding the role of that, because it's like, to me, the most important thing that we can do is become a more moral and virtuous civilization, a more moral and virtuous individual, family, community, because it's like you realize that it really is a battle of good versus evil. And if evil gets its way, you have zero chance of defending yourself from this beast system. If they've got these, mosquito-sized drones with payloads on them, it doesn't matter how many guns you own. There's a lot of Americans think, oh, we've got all our guns. It's like, go watch the war footage of Ukraine and Russia and watch how quickly these, like special forces teams are being taken out by a single drone. So like, we're not going to be able to use flesh and blood to fight this battle.
Try and shoot a mosquito with a 9mm. Good luck.
Exactly. And so that's what, to me, that's it. Obviously, it's like exercising free will, but fundamentally, it's just doing everything we can to get our country, our community, our family back to God. Because then it's like, I think that then we'll deserve God's protection. But if we don't do that and we become Sodom and Gomorrah and the Babylonian America, like, then why do we deserve to be protected? But anyway, what are your thoughts,
that's
Todd?
beautiful. No, it's so beautiful. Well, let me, as you're saying this, it makes me think of a anecdotal story. When my kids were little, their favorite word was no. You're in the throes of that now, right? No, they're exercising their free will. We are not doing that. What does mom and dad do? Oh, okay, here we go again. I guess we're not doing that today. So it works, and so I have the same thing. I've got a lot of metal in my body, so when I go to airports, the TSA screeners, you look at these poor people, they're just bored out of their heads, but they hate me generally when they see me because I'm not going through your metal detectors. If I do, I'm going to set it off, and I'm not going through your microwave oven, the one that go like this. It's a microwave, the thing that you cook food with. It's the exact same signal. I'm not going through your microwave oven. So I get up there and I say, listen, can I please have a pat down instead? And they, with great pride, they say, we have an opt out. And the whole
me
airport
too. I'm always
knows
kind of
it's an
standing there,
opt-out.
look around. Everyone's looking at me like I'm strange, and
I love it. I love it because you know why I love it? Because then I have an opportunity to have a conversation with the TSA people. And I've done this all over the world. And they'll say, you got any parts? Yeah. Why opt out? Why won't you go through that machine? And it gives me a chance to explain to them, do you know what those frequencies are? Can you tell me? Because I know what they are. You know what frequency that operates on? And after you have a conversation with them, you explain to them, no, I'm not doing this. I now see others people. It's contagious. We had a guy we were traveling with to South America a month ago. He said, I didn't know you could opt out. Yeah, you can. Those photographs too? You don't have to take those. You can opt out. So the point is one you're making, right? If we say, no, I'm opting out of your nonsense, if enough people do it, you're 3% or whatever, none of this is doable. Go back to the whole Bud Light thing. Enough people said, I'm not buying your Bud Light, that they had to change direction. So it does work, and it is up to us. It's always been up to us, Seth. And I think you're right. Back in the days of Babylon, before the Great Flood, people had a chance. Don't go this way. And they did anyway. And what happened? God flooded the world and started over. We're at that precipice again. And we have the opportunity to save ourselves. And God willing, we are. Seth, we're still here. Brother, the plan was for us all to be dead. You look at the Deagle report, a 70% reduction in the United States population by the end of this year. That wasn't a forecast. That was a plan. And yet, we are still here. So I think that's going to what your point is that this time can be different. And God willing, and if people can find Christ, go back to spirituality, I think we've got a really good chance of seeing our kids grow into adults and having grandkids.
Exactly. It's funny because it reminds me of the masks. And I refused to wear the mask.
Yeah.
And I remember going into whether it was Whole Foods or grocery stores, and it was actually so simple, right? Because I'd go walk into a Whole Foods, which was, they had the really strict mask requirements and everything, and I'd walk in there, I'd be the only person without a mask, and I'd see it in the corner of my eye, okay, here comes the manager, he's walking up, and sir, you need to put a mask on. I'd look at him, I'd go, nope, and I just keep walking, and they wouldn't know what to do. Like, it's like they weren't used to that. It's like, how dare you second guess my power? And I'd just look at them, I'd say, nope. I'm not going to wear one.
I love it.
Right? And I continue shopping. I just keep walking, and they would never follow me. They didn't know how to handle it because it's almost like something kind of like divine happened at that moment, where it's like, okay, hey, look, Satan, he exercised his free will, right? Now, granted, there were certain countries like China and whatever where they'd say, okay, we'll put a black bag over your head, but I think America is the vanguard of this battle in many ways, and that's all it took. It was so simple, and I'd oftentimes smile and say, nope, and just keep walking, and I'd see someone else without a mask, and we'd see each other, and I'd see their face, and they'd see my face, and we'd have this like telepathic kind of fist bump that was happening. I'd go talk to them sometimes, and anyway, it's just like that's what we need to do.
That is your show. That's that connected consciousness, but you just put it in great words, the telepathic fist bump. I love it. That's you, brother. You're the leader of it.
I guess so.
Cool.
I guess so. Well, Todd, as we're wrapping up, do you have any kind of last thoughts to leave folks with?
Oh, a plethora. They never end. It's vigilance, Seth, and this is the cool part, right? As you're talking about abandoning AI and whatnot, people are actually getting this. We're helping people graduate out of this full trust paradigm where anything official was believed. Now people go, it's official. The FDA says it'll help you, it's going to kill you. Right. So now people are actually taking the time to do the research themselves. And this is part of that resurgence about taking our dominion, our domain back. And it's happening. It's contagious. It's beautiful. And it makes me happy because I see a future, especially when my son's generation are like, I'm not doing AI. We're not. They're actually seeing the consequence in the forecast. And I'm really heartened by that. So, yeah, I'm chuffed, brother. I think we're going to make it, but it takes everybody pulling in the same direction.
Exactly. And I think these conversations help give people that ammo, that encouragement, and also that telepathic fist bump, right? I think that's what it is. I think
Love that.
that's why these our interviews oftentimes go far and wide, because people, they watch, they listen, and they're saying, yeah, like you're right with me, and it's like I think a lot of people feel very alone, right? They do feel very isolated, and that's a big part of it. And so when they get that acknowledgement, they're just like, oh, yeah,
validation.
Right? You're on my team. You're on my team. Actually,
That's exactly
and I'll pull
right.
something up here just because I think I told you about this. But I told you so one of the projects that I'm doing, which was supposed to be launched about a month ago, but with my father being ill and passing, and a few other things happening, it kind of slowed things down. But so I'm building an online community, right? Did I tell you about this? I think I might have mentioned it to you.
I knew about books and I knew something about this, but please, yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, it's this calling to do it. So actually, the URL is buildtheark.com, and I think we're launching within the next couple of weeks. We're at the very, very finishing stages, but the idea is to take that exact thing, right? All those people that just kind of wore the mask because no one else was rejecting it, right? Or people that felt isolated. I'm building this online community, but it's really about building offline connections, right? So it's almost like it's very private, very secure. It's almost like a social media type site, but it's just it's a private membership community, but just for people that join, that share our values. And it's really about this understanding that it takes us strengthening the bonds with each other and supporting each other. That's how we're going to accomplish this. And so what it is though, is that people come on, they create a profile, they can interact. There's all these different message boards. So a lot of it's around preparedness. There's going to be different kind of boards. So say you need help with your solar setup, you have questions about canning food.
Oh, cool.
There's all kinds of experts that are going to be on there that can help you with that. There's a huge library we're going to be building out of tutorials, how-to training courses. A lot of it really built upon self-reliance, right? So how to off-grid your water systems, how to off-grid, have medicine, how to find natural medicines, how to even the idea that you can actually use, fish antibiotics, in a pinch, if you need to actually get antibiotics, you can use a lot of animal related stuff. Right. And so the community though, it's a lot of it though is about building these offline connections. So there's going to be chapters. So, whatever region you're in, whether you're in the United States and you find, this is the Northwest region, or say you're in the Ireland region, that there's going to be chapters. So you can start to build these connections and have local meetups.
Magnificent.
So you can actually meet other people. Because I've realized is that you and I are just kind of like in a big blob of the community that's being built around these conversations. Right. And there's a lot of people that are thinking, gosh, if I knew more Todd Callenders locally, like the idea is that this is how they can find it. Right. So anyway, for people that are watching, if you want to get on the kind of waiting list, you just go to buildtheark.com. So it's kind of the ARC community, right? It's like Noah had his ARC, but what we're doing is we're building a collective ARC together to support each other. But anyway, so it's buildtheark.com, and just plug in your name and your email there. And this is how you can, we'll notify people when the community is open for joining. But this is something, again,
I love that.
Hopefully within weeks or so, we're going to have it launched. All the back end's already ready for it. We've already been testing it. We've got members already, that kind of the beta version of it. Yeah. There's a little area for prayer requests, right? So say you're struggling and, say you're, having issues with your spouse or someone's sick, and you need a place where you can come on and say, look, here's where I'm at. Can I get some prayers and some support? there's going to be that aspect of it too. So it's really about building kind of fellowship and community. So, I'll make sure that the URL is in the description, but it just felt like it felt so natural to bring that into our discussion, because that's really what this is we have to kind of build these systems. And unfortunately, we have to use online for some aspects of it, but the key is using online to build these offline relationships.
I love this. I love your concept. Count me in. I'll be one of your OGs, because
Perfect.
it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I'd love to be a part of that.
Well, perfect. Well, Todd, as usual, it's great talking to you. I always feel good, kind of coming out of these conversations, and I feel like, what, there is hope. We've got a way forward. We're still here, and let's just keep going.
Yeah, we're going to keep marching. There isn't any alternative anyway, so let's be joyous while we do it.
Exactly. Well, Todd, thank you. Take care, and God bless.
My honor.
It's great speaking with you.
Likewise. God bless you and yours.
Thank you. So I hope you enjoyed that interview, but I've now got a short 15-minute interview that's quite fascinating with a guy named Tom Simon, who is former FBI and a current financial investigator. Basically, he's a private investigator with a focus on financial crimes, talking about what happens when people steal one of your greatest assets that you have. So we'll be detailing that. Again, it's about 15 minutes, so please enjoy this short little interview for you. Tom Simon, it's great to have you as a guest on the show. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, Seth, thanks so much for having me on.
So you are former FBI, which is, I'd be hesitant about having a current FBI person on the show, but usually former I can talk a little more openly to. But you're also a private investigator, specifically focusing on financial crimes, which is, we'll get into that. But the one thing that we're really kind of honing in on today is literally how someone can basically steal your home from you. And you were talking before we started recording about kind of the more libertarian mindset, and I own my land and I'm out in the country, and it's this idea of like, this is my land and I own it, and this is part of the fundamental part of what it means to be an American, is the opportunity to, even though with all the taxation, it's kind of like, do I really own my land, or am I still renting it from the government until I die from taxes? But that's a different story. But the idea, though, that someone can literally steal your house is it's so wild, it's almost difficult to believe. But with your background and with your current work, this is something that you know all too well. So why don't you just give us just a basic overview of what this is?
It is counterintuitive, because we all go home to our house at the end of the day and live there quite comfortably with the knowledge that this is our home. There's a mortgage on it, like you said, and there's taxes that you have to pay, but ultimately it's still your home. But the fact is that someone can actually go to your county clerk's office, a criminal, and file a document called a deed. And what that deed does is it will transfer ownership of your home from your name into their name, or the name of somebody that is working for them as a straw buyer, let's say. And then they can go out and get home equity lines of credit or loans on your home, as using it as collateral from banks who just aren't paying that close of attention, because legally on the books in the county records, the bad guy is now the owner of your house. And here's the thing, Seth, you won't even know this occurred until months later, when the foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox.
So basically, let's just say that the guy, Sammy Smith, is a criminal.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes these guys have fake IDs, right? Either them or their partner. They're working with stolen identities. Maybe they've even stolen my own identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But basically what you're saying is that they have ways of changing the ownership, which is the deed, within the county records, which, I've bought and sold homes before. I know there's a process. You go through a title company and they handle all that for you. But I know that when getting a loan with a bank, the bank has to verify with the county that you own the home that you are working, or that you're purchasing the home that you're getting a loan on. And there's a lot of due diligence there. And so what you're saying is that someone can basically, it makes sense that it's kind of archaic that they can just go to the county record and file some paper. You'd think these things would all be connected, but it's like if you go to the DMV, you know that they're still in the 1980s and a lot of their technology. So they can go to the county records, change that record, showing that I no longer own the home, that they do, or some fake identity that they have taken owns the home. But then they can use that home as collateral to go take out a $400,000 loan on the home that I think that I actually still own, and they take the money and run. And Then say 3, 4, 5 months down the road, the bank's not getting payments, obviously. I then get a letter showing that the bank is foreclosing on my home, and I'm saying, wait, I didn't go get a loan with Chase Bank. My loan is with, the local company. Is that basically how it works?
Yeah, you explained it well. I mean, the deed is the mechanism that transfers ownership from one person to another. It could be a quit claim deed or a warranty deed, but the title of your house is really what matters. And that title, if it's in the name of you and someone goes in and files a quit claim deed in the county clerk's office, moving that into the name of a homeless guy that they just paid $50 to, or their own name, for example, they become, as far as the county clerk is concerned, the owner of record of your home. And then they can go out and get loans on it. They can sell it out from under you. They can do anything. And I think you touched upon something why people are so skeptical about that this would happen. The problem is, and I know you have a healthy distrust of the government, and I appreciate that. As a former government employee, I do too. But the county clerk's office, by statute, is not verifying the authenticity of these deeds that transfer ownership. Their job by statute is to simply record those deeds in the public record. And so that's the weak link in the chain, that there's no one watching the store at your county clerk's office to say that this deed is legitimate and this deed is fraudulent. Once their job is solely to transfer that ownership according to the documents.
And so with your FBI background and with your current work as a private investigator, how common is this? Is this something that, because there's a lot of threats out there. It's like, okay, someone could kidnap me tomorrow and have a ransom on me. And there's a lot of threats, but then you think, okay, is that really going to happen? Of course I can get in a car accident or get struck by lightning, but I'm still going to keep going on living my life. But with this title theft, I mean, how big of an industry is it and how common is it?
Anecdotally, I can see that it happens a lot because I do work for a company called Home Title Lock, and we have analysts there that send me clippings of news articles and criminal charges where it's happening, and it's a long list every single week. The problem is that there's, with the exception of New York and Florida, there's no crime on the books anywhere called home title theft. It's usually charged as in the federal system by the mail fraud or the wire fraud statute. So I saw it a lot as an FBI agent, but there's no good way to index it. So it happens a lot. It happens a lot in like these crazy circumstances with these very sympathetic victims, but we don't have good numbers on it. The other problem is that a lot of the times when someone goes into their local police station to say, hey, someone has stolen the title to my home, the police, who are trying to work hard to keep us safe, often tell them, listen, I don't really understand what you're talking about. It sounds like a civil matter. If you're in a real estate dispute with someone, go sue them. And then it never even hits the criminal courts.
I see, which is kind of crazy because it's like, let's say if someone stole my $10,000 tractor, right, and I went to the local precinct, I'd file a report and they would probably do their due diligence and they'd be looking for this
Right.
certain model of Kubota tractor. If they see it, they'd actually work on finding it, and if they found it, they would probably prosecute the person who stole it and they'd get the tractor back to me. Like, it seems like a very simple thing, yet someone could have a $1 million home that this happens with, that literally, like, if someone steals my tractor, it's like, I'm gonna be okay, right? But if someone steals your home and all of a sudden you've got foreclosure happening on your home that you live in, and that home for a lot of Americans represents the entirety of your nest egg, you're kind of up the creek without a paddle, right?
It's a problem, right? It's a paper caper, and oftentimes the police aren't super excited to work those kind of cases. Whereas like a CPA nerd like me that was hired by the FBI spent 26 years working these type of cases. I like fraud cases. And you pointed out something really intelligent, is that for most Americans, myself included, the equity you have in your home is your single largest asset. But it's kind of nebulous, right? Because it's an ownership of a property that you're not trying to sell, that has a value, that you know what the value is. But when someone steals that from you, it's just very difficult for law enforcement to kind of wrap their heads around this and act appropriately. It's getting better. I mean, we're doing kind of a public education campaign, going on shows like this, talking about it. But it's still a problem, and people need to keep an eye on their home title to make sure it doesn't happen to them.
And so you mentioned New York, this case that just happened in New York, where the AG James actually has now changed this to make it actually prosecutable crime, right? So
right.
Can you walk us through what happened here?
Yeah, there was a realtor in Rockland County, New York, named Oscar Deas. And what he did is he forged a woman's name on a deed. Her name was Monique Hill, the victim, transferring ownership of the house to Oscar's control. And then he took her house, and even though she's still living in it, and began monetizing that house so he could extract the equity from it using loans and other means. But the problem is this happened in 2021, and it took 5 years for a law to pass that was retroactive that they could actually charge Oscar with this. The problem, though, is that the criminal justice system is not really set up to undo the damage done. The criminal courts is not the proper venue to unwind this situation and get that house back into Monique's name or any victim's name of home title theft.
I see. And so what's crazy is that it's saying here he was in the Dominican Republic, like when this was happening, right? So the guy who did it, it's like, so he doesn't.
You can thank
he wasn't
COVID
even,
for that.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, actually, that's true, because I'm sure that under COVID, that
you would have to walk in, present a document with the notary signature, present identification, make it look real. Now, ever since COVID, a lot of these counties are allowing you to file your deeds and transferring ownership of a home from you to someone else online. And so there's not even anyone watching the store at the county clerk's office.
Crazy. And this is here it's saying actually this is just the latest example of G. James taking action. It says in August, 2 people were charged for stealing the home of an elderly woman in Queens. In February, there's a charge against a woman in Queens for stealing the home and funds of her elderly neighbor. And I've looked at this too, because when I was first investigating working with Home Title Lock, I was just, okay, is this real? And yeah, if you go and you search title theft, you can see there's a bunch of news coverage, and almost every time it's like the gauntlet of difficulty if the person ever even recovers those funds. And that's one of the other questions that I had for you with this, was that we talked about this tractor. So say I had a tractor that was stolen. They're going to work on trying to get if they catch the bad guy, hey, we found the tractor in his garage, and they're going to hopefully get it back to me. And I know, if cars are stolen, those cars get parted out and everything, and your insurance will give you a replacement because that's covered. But do people recover off of this? Like if you one day wake up and there's a foreclosure and someone's got a $500,000 mortgage on your home, and they took that money, and that money is not even in an American-based bank account anymore. What
right.
Are they?
The trick is trying to restore the proper ownership of the home to the victim. And so there's options for that, right? A victim can hire attorneys and spend an absolute fortune getting civil attorneys to kind of make this thing right and restore that home back into it. And you mentioned Home Title Lock. I'm a spokesperson for them. They have a U.S.-based restoration team that'll do it for you with no out-of-pocket expenses for Home Title Lock subscribers.
And so, it's just kind of wild. But with that process, right? Because I know that in a different interview I did on this, they were explaining to me how, like, let's just say that person loses their home. If they go try to find an attorney or find someone to help with it, well, for one, I think from what I understand, a lot of attorneys don't even actually understand a lot of the specific mechanisms of how to get this back. Like if you go to an attorney and say, hey, someone stole my home, they might be, they'll look into it and they'll do their best, but it's not something like, it's such a, when you're dealing with like this complex labyrinth of documents and systems and deeds and everything, but you're also kind of going between criminal and civil, it's not easy to navigate, right?
That's the thing. Like real estate attorneys are very good at what they do. They facilitate the closings on houses and make sure everything is squared away with the title transfer and all that. But when something is done fraudulently, that requires a very specific set of skills that a lot of real estate attorneys don't have. So if someone is caught in this situation and they need to go out and hire someone to do that, you want to make sure you hire someone who actually knows this process and knows how to unring the bell rung by the criminal when they stole your home.
And so I want to pull up Home Title Lock's website. And so people, the URL just hometitlelock.com/Seth. And so I know they have this $1 million triple lock protection. So walk us through, what does Home Title Lock do? Because if I know correctly, they don't necessarily go in and like kind of put a wall up at every county office, making sure no one can steal your title. But what they do is that they monitor that activity so you catch it at the very inception of the theft, and you're then able to stop it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but also explain a little more about how they work.
Yeah, let me walk through that. So it's important that every single person watching your show, Seth, monitors their home title with some regularity. The problem is you're going to drive yourself crazy hopping on the county clerk's website so you can take a look at your home title every single day to make sure no one has messed with it, no one has placed a lien on your house or transferred title from your name to the name of some homeless guy. So Home Title Lock's going to take that off your shoulders. And so the first kind of piece of the triple lock protection is the monitoring. They're going to monitor the status of your home title electronically. The second piece is notification. They're going to let you know if anything should change on your home title. Sometimes that's perfectly legitimate. You go out and get a home equity line of credit because you want to build a deck in the back, or some kind of loan on your house. That's going to create a lien on the county clerk's website, and you're going to be notified, and you can tell Home Title Lock, no, that was me. But you want to be notified if a bad guy also is doing something to your house. But the third one, and in my mind, this is the most important, is the U.S.-based restoration team. Or if the bad guy is somehow able to transfer that home out of your name into someone else's name and then begin getting loans on it, the U.S.-based restoration team from Home Title Lock is going to spend $1 million in legal fees or whatever it takes to get that home back into your name, which to me is worth its weight in gold.
I see. So that makes sense. That makes sense. So, okay. So the URL, and I'll put this up in the description for the show, it's just hometitlelock.com/Seth. And if you use the promo code Seth, then you get a free title history report and a free trial of the triple lock protection. And to me, it seems like I guess people are very familiar with identity theft protection, services that you can sign up for, and they'll notify you if someone uses your social security number to open a credit card or a line of credit or get auto loan. So it seems like it's the same principle, except it's applied to your home.
Exactly. It's the exact same idea. And God willing, you'll never need it, right? But I have a smoke detector in every room of my house. And hopefully my house doesn't catch on fire. But I sleep better knowing that smoke detector is there kind of looking out for me, even when I'm not paying attention to it. It's one less thing I need to think about. I'm a Home Title Lock subscriber myself. Again, my largest asset is the equity in my house. I cannot afford to have that stolen from me.
Makes perfect sense. So, Tom, thank you again for giving us your time. I'll make sure, as I mentioned, that all the links we talked about are in the show description. And yeah, it's been nice talking to you, and I'm still kind of envious over your book collection behind you, which is quite impressive there. So,
all right, well, Seth, it's so great talking to you, and please let me know if I can ever do anything for you.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, take care, buddy.